Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and we're back again with another Spirit Island video. Today, we are going to be playing Starlight Seeks Its Form against HME 6. But this is not going to be any other type of gameplay video. I'm going to call this one Overexplained. As a content creator, I have to have a balance between talking a lot, explaining decisions, and, having a decent pace of gameplay. The more I talk and the more I explain, the longer the game is going to take. And, for some viewers, that might turn into like kind of a boring thing. You're like, hey, come on, let's go. We made a decision. We want to keep this game moving. They might find themselves skipping a lot. And on the other hand, if I try and have a really fast pace of play, then a lot of viewers might lose track of what's going on and just be like, why do we do X, Y, and Z? I don't understand. I've lost the plot. And so I feel like I've found a pace that works pretty good for me. Usually my solo games come in at like 30 to 45 minutes. But today, I am going to be doing something. I've wanted to do this for a little while, and this, I think, was explicitly requested. I remember this coming up in the comments, but I couldn't find the old comment asking for a really deep dive into one single matchup, and I was talking to this person a little bit, and we ultimately decided on Starlight versus HME, so that is what we're going to be doing today. All right, here we are. We got our opening explore is the wetlands. So we have Starlight, and Starlight is a very complicated spirit, and we have HME, who I think is probably the most complicated adversary going up against each other. So we're going to have a lot of things to talk about. And before we do anything at all, I think it's really valuable to have a bit of a game plan in your mind before you actually step into the game itself. You want to set your expectations, your thoughts, and anchor yourself in a certain way so that way when decisions are made or when it comes time to make decisions, you have something to base your decisions upon. If you don't think through a matchup before you play it, you don't really have a sense of what you're doing or why you're doing it, and that's generally going to lead to worse results. So every other spirit has a pretty clear game plan. At least they have a clear strength of some kind. They have certain elements that if you play cards of those elements, you gain access to bonus powers called innate powers. Starlight doesn't have any one clear innate power because we have an innate power for every single element that exists. Now, this is one of the things that makes Starlight so much fun and so popular is that literally anything that you do, you can pick up bonus innate powers along the way and feel like every single decision that you make is a good one. But the thing is, as you play Starlight enough, especially against level 6 adversaries, you will come to realize that in some matchups, certain elements are better than others. And I think it's a good thing. It's a testament to the game that different elements and different innate powers are better or worse against different adversaries. But what are the ones that we care about for HME? Let's go through the list. Let's start at the top and work our way down, beginning with the air moves, where you get to push 2 explorers or a town. In general, I think that the air innate power is just generally the weakest on Starlight. In most matchups, this one is not one that we prioritize, and it's not going to be one that we care super heavily here against HME. However, I think it is probably better against HME than any other adversary. And to understand this, let's take a look at HME 1, Ceaseless Mining. Lands with 3 or more invaders are mining lands. In mining lands, diseases and modifiers to disease affect ravage actions as though they were build actions. And then here's the big one. During the build step, build cards cause ravage actions instead of build actions. Okay? If we have 3 or more invaders in a land, does not matter the quality of the invaders, triple city, triple explore, it still has the same modifiers being a mining land. They're going to ravage a set of build. This means over the course of the game, we are generally going to have fewer build actions and more ravage actions, right? Even if only one single time all game we have a build turn into a ravage, it becomes true, right? There's just a reduction in build actions and an increase in ravage actions. Why is that something that has to do with pushing? Is because we can make things into mining lands, or we can break up mining lands at fast speed. A point that I'm going to come back to over and over and over again is that having a mining land exist is neither a good nor a bad thing. It is simply different. The fact that you're doing a ravage action could be actively a good thing, because if we already have Dahan and Defend, instead of the land getting stronger, the land will get weaker. And that's going to free us up to do different things in the future, and then we can actually start to gain tempo on the invaders, and they just start punching themselves in the face repeatedly. And so because there is the possibility of the invaders defeating themselves, that is why this air innate power can be really good. Now, the defend is tied to the push, so the earth innate, earth endures, is tied to the air, meaning we have to use them in the same exact land, which is really unfortunate. If these were two separate powers, this would probably just immediately become the dominant strategy with the spirit, is just always create mining lands and always defend them, so that way the invaders just don't build the whole game. And then we can just kind of, get free scaling because of that. However, these are the same power, so the only reason why the air innate is not better is just because, when there's more ravages, the value of defend goes up, right? That's like literally the only thing defend does is counter a ravage, and so when there's an increase in ravages, the necessity to defend, becomes greater. That being said, there is a minor power, Confounding Mist right here, which is an air defend card, which has no earth. So we can imagine if this is the card that we get in our very first draft, we can find ourselves, leaning heavily into air and then leveraging this Confounding Mist, and this can be a centerpiece to victory. We could certainly imagine a world where going for air and Confounding Mists is better than just going for the earth, because we can reliably create more ravages and keep them safe, which just naturally keeps the total amount of plastic on the island down. So that second one is Earth Endures, where, if you have triple Earth, you get a defend card. And a kind of a funny thing as you work your way through this minor power deck, a lot of the defend cards that exist already have Earth on them. So like Call to Guard, Carapace Land, Dark Entangled Woods, as you work our way down. Here's one that does not have Earth, Domesticated Animals. But most of them, like Drift Down into Slumber, they already have Earth on them. And this means that if we wind up drafting defend cards, we're also going to find ourselves picking up this 3 Earth Defend 5 innate power. By drafting 1 defend card, you kind of get 2 at the same time. And this can lead to situations where if you draft too much defense, right? If you draft 3 defend cards, you're going to find yourself with way more defend actions, and we're going to find ourselves just not being able to actually do anything. Just defending all day is cool, but your defense just buys you time in order to do something else. If you defend without Dahan, that is, right, we're just kicking the can down the road, and eventually we're going to have to get a major because we're not making any proactive plays. If there is Dahan, of course, this is a great thing, and then we can, proactively gain ground. But without the Dahan, it's kind of just a waste of time. I bring that up now because that's a point that we're going to be coming back to a lot over the course of this video, is it worth spending an action to defend a land without Dahan? And spoiler alert, the answer is probably going to be no. We'll get more to that in a minute. Let's continue to Fire Burns, Water Soothes. So Fire Burns, 1 fear, 2 damage. Great, killing things is always good, right? Fear and damage, you can never be mad about it. The only reason why I'm not always in love with fire is just because it's not a lot of damage. It is, kills a town, and that's cool, and that's all good and fine. But there's a lot of minor powers that just do this. Fear and 2 damage already exists in a lot of cards. For example, Devouring Ants, since I'm in the D section, right? It is a fear, and it's 2 damage. So, like, why would I need to go into triple fire if I can just play Devouring Ants instead? You know what I mean? We would need to have a good reason to pick up a fire. Like, we'd already want to have a bunch of fire already. Maybe we wound up drafting Domesticated Animals as our defend card because that's what was offered to us. That would be a reason to go into fire because we already have the defense angle covered, and now we're looking to diversify. So if it works out naturally, that's cool, but I'm never going to prioritize pushing for fire just because the payoff is just not a big enough number. Maybe if it was like 3 damage, we can kill a city, that would be enough to make it worthwhile, but I don't know. I haven't thought too much about it. I just know that 2 damage is generally not enough to make us pursue it, but it's good when you get it. And I should actually, let's explain this, right? What do I mean by pursuing a certain thing? Well, we're going to be stuck on 2 card plays for a significant chunk of the game. It takes 3 gross across bottom track just to get to a 3rd card play. And this means that to get any of these innate powers, we're going to need to have 2 cards of a matching element, and we're going to have to put an element on our tracks. Of course, Starlight can choose the elements that it gains on its tracks, and that's what I mean by investing in it, right? We only get to add 4 elements, and so every one of these 4 is a very important conscious choice. If I invest into any one thing, I'm not investing into something else. Since we know that defend is really strong, if we pick up an early earth element, then we're not picking up an early fire element. So that's something that we just want to be cognizant of when we start drafting our cards, is that we need to have matching elements, and it needs to be elements that we're willing to use over the course of the whole game. All right, so next we have Water Soothes. This is 3 water and remove a blight, and this is very, very bad into HME. Why? Once again, coming back to HME level 1, Avarice rewarded. When Blight added by a Ravage action would cascade, you don't. Instead, you upgrade a building, upgrade an explorer or a town. So normally, against other adversaries, when you get the 2nd Blight in a land, you have to pay an additional Blight penalty, and it spirals across the board. And therefore, Blight removal is an incredibly powerful and important tool, because if you don't remove a Blight and you're still struggling to handle the land, then the bad thing gets even worse. But against HME, this is not the case. We can freely let a land Blight 2, 3, 4, 5 times. It does not matter, because we're not going to be taking those extra adjacent Blight. We can never find ourselves in a massive Blight cascade situation where you just start like an infinite loop or like a massive train and you just completely Blight out of nowhere. If we get a really unfortunate event, that gives us bonus damage and then we're under defended, you get a Blight every single time, just 1. Therefore, since the taking of Blight in the early game is a lot less punishing, removing the Blight is a lot less necessary. Why invest actions and time and resources into solving a problem that doesn't really create any new problems? Once again, if we just so happen to get it, it's always better to remove the Blight than to not, asterisk. But it's no reason to go out of our way to try and make this happen. It doesn't gain us any advantage. Now, I threw that little asterisk in there, and that's because we have to once again go back to the rules and look at HME 6. The Empire Ascendant on boards with 3 or fewer Blight, then do things, right? This means that if we start to take additional Blight, we can actually make the adversary easier. That's a bit of a rubber banding effect, where if we take a bunch of early Blight, the invaders start doing less against us. Therefore, if we remove Blight, the adversary stays stronger. So I was talking before about how the adversary, HME, can kind of start hurting themselves by ravaging into defended lands, instead of becoming a bigger threat. The opposite can be true. We can actively be hurting ourselves by investing time and resources and elements and everything. If we're actively trying to remove the Blight, the adversary stays stronger. If instead we just let the Blight happen and we focused on, attacking them and doing a lot of damage, maybe we take some Blight along the way, who cares? Well, guess what? Not only are we gaining advantages on the board, but the adversary starts stepping back and they don't put as much pressure on us anymore. So all of the rewards point in the same direction. That being, Blight removal is just completely unnecessary. You'll never see me take a water against HME. It just makes no sense to me at all. All right, next we got the plant one, Wood Seeks Growth. Choose a spirit with presence in target land. They gain a power card. Cool. We love more power cards. This thing doesn't do anything, but it helps us find things to do. In solo, this is definitely something I value a lot less. If you have a choice between doing something and kicking the can down the road, hoping to, do something later, I generally prefer to do things right now. If I had a choice between, I don't know, Devouring Ants I already talked about. So Devouring Ants, which, kills things and interacts with the board, versus Gift of Power, I'm probably going to be taking the Devouring Ants every single time because a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, right? It's the immediate value is always going to be a good thing, whereas drafting more cards could be good. I mean, it could be bad, and even if it is equally as good, it's actually worse because we're delayed. We're doing the thing a lot later. To make it really worthwhile, you would need to pull like the amazing, perfect, immaculate major power instead of, doing the small little thing now. So I view the plant innate, at least in solo, as a big gamble. In multiplayer, I think this gets a lot better because oftentimes we, can at least hold our board stable. Maybe we're not like crushing our board, but we're holding stable. We're doing just fine. But we have the opportunity to make our teammates into Super Saiyans at no cost to them. That becomes a very, very powerful thing. So many spirits get completely broken in half with just a couple of free power gains. And if we can provide that to a teammate, that's beautiful. But today we're playing solo, and so there is an opportunity cost here that we need to consider. All right, next we have Humans Seek Freedom. 1 damage per Dahan, or push 3 Dahan. And I think this is an essential one against HME. As we've been talking about before, they're going to be doing a lot of Ravage actions. And if we defend without any Dahan to counterattack, it kicks the can down the road and we gain no forward progress. But this right here gives us the ability to move Dahan around, and that means that we can actually start to gain advantages every single time that we defend a land. For all the reasons I mentioned before with, the whole, taking Blight and, the whole rubber banding effect, I don't think it ever makes sense, or usually doesn't make sense, to defend a land without the Dahan in it. So if we find ourselves with these defend cards that really don't provide us value, getting access to Dahan movement through Human Seek Freedom is a very good thing because it makes our entire defend package so much better. If we have defend without Dahan, we don't really accomplish much, but even this animal one by itself without the defend part can still be good because it says deal a damage per Dahan, right? It provides value no matter what everything else is, so I love going for Human Seek Freedom in this matchup. Next, Side Reel Guidance. This is a great one because this is our only elemental threshold that triggers off of 2 of the same element. We don't need 3 to get there. And the 2 is a very powerful effect. Gather 1 Explorer or 1 Dahan. We were already talking about the power of pushing invaders, and gathering and pushing is, just a semantic difference most of the time. So being able to create a mining land to force a land to ravage can be a great thing. And then in much the same way, if we have a land that's about to ravage and we have defend for it, we need Dahan. This also gives us the option to bring in 1 Dahan. Now, 1 Dahan might not sound like a lot, but remember, there is going to be more Ravage actions and fewer build actions, meaning that all of these Ravage actions are going to be smaller. It takes less Dahan, it takes less damage for them to be fully cleared out. So 1 single Dahan can be enough to completely turn the tide. But there's one specific thing that we want to think about. Let's say you have 3 Explorers in a land, and so it's mining and it's going to Ravage instead of build. If we bring 1 Dahan in, and then we defend it for even just 2 points, that 1 Dahan is going to kill off 2 of the Explorers, leaving behind just 1 single Explorer going into the Ravage step. And of course, that's always the ideal situation. We love it when there's just a single Explorer. We can ignore that land, and we can move on to the next thing. 1 Dahan is all it takes to turn the whole game around. Now, if we do hit 3 moons, we get the ability to move 3 explorers instead of Dahan. We don't get to move any Dahan at this level. And that can be very good, right? If we get the double explorer, you can full clear it and just put them somewhere else. Instead of forcing it to ravage, we can just empty it. And that's a great thing. However, it can also be tricky just because of the whole loss condition. If there are 8 bits of plastic, in the form of invaders and blight combined, then we lose. So bringing 3 into a land is going to put a lot of LC pressure on. Not saying we can't do it, just saying that oftentimes we're going to be using the power for less than its potential value in order to play around problems like that. Still very good. Because of the 2 moon being as good as it is, though, I find myself never taking a moon on my element track, but instead giving a little extra love to cards that I want to play anyways, but also have that moon on it. A moon on a minor power or a major power is a beautiful kicker to see, even if, everything else about the card has nothing to do with that moon effect. It's a really nice bonus that at every single stage of the game is useful. All right, last we got Stars Blaze in the daytime sky, the sun innate power, and this is the one that takes 4 of a single element instead of 3. And for that reason alone, we don't even need to look at the text. It becomes a really, really hard one to use. We'd have to get 3 card plays all with sun and an element, or we'd have to burn 2 of our element nodes on sun. It's a very, very hard one to get. So this could say like you win the game, and it still might be a difficult one to pull off. That being said, it says gain 3 fear and energy and a reclaim 1, and that is really, 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 really good. However, the cost is so high. So I find myself only ever going for this if I pull a sun major power, and so I have multiple reasons to tech into sun. Just because even after you pick up a few sun elements on your tracks, sometimes you still don't get all the way to 4 suns. And that's really awkward. It feels really bad for all of that wasted investment. Very good, arguably the best out of everything on our innate power suite. But of course, you'd hope it's the best because it's the hardest one to get to. Now, all of that stuff with innate powers makes Starlight a very difficult spirit just because there's no clear sense of direction. With any other spirit, you can always just draft on element and you kind of sort of find your way through the game. Starlight, you need to be able to figure out what elements matter and what don't, at least strictly in terms of your innate powers. But it's also complicated because we have all of these optional growth options. We get to, after removing this presence, we can choose if we want to gain this growth option or that growth option 4 times over. And we're going to go for a pretty standard setup, that being the gain a power card, move a presence for this top line. For line number 3, we're going to want to take reclaim cards, where line number 2, I like to leave this one until we need to use it immediately. If we immediately need to use that 3 energy to make our turn work, then we'll pull this presence and use the 3. Or if we must get the extra card play, we can do so here. But I generally just sit on this one for as long as I have to. And this bottom line, because it takes 2 steps to get there, it's usually way too late for this 2 damage at range 0 to be effective. So we find ourselves going for the extra card play and slow to fast. However, like I said, it takes a long time to get there, and there is no free element or anything on these 2. So it's just a really slow one to, really, really slow one to unlock. If we have the time and we know that we want to do it, is of course better to go for the slow to fast as opposed to presence movement. However, it just takes two turns of lead time instead of 1. Just a little thing to think about. So after I go for my first and my third, I don't really worry about unlocking these other growth options. I just focus on clearing these tracks here, the energy and the card plays track, picking up all of my elements. Generally, once we've gone through that, the game ends. But we have access to these other growth options just in case we feel the need to. Wow, that's a lot to talk about before we even look at the board. We got board A, and we got the Wetlands Opener, which gives us a double mining land. Very, very spicy. So I think a reason why HME can feel very stressful is, take a look at this. We are going to be getting a turn 1 Ravage. No other adversary in the game can Ravage on turn 1, and so this creates a certain amount of pressure that we're going to be very uncomfortable with. I think a general standard strategy for every other adversary in the game is prevent Blight, pull majors, and win the game later. But if we invest resources into preventing this Blight like in the A5, I guarantee we will lose. We can stop the Ravage with this Piece of the Nighttime Sky, but I guarantee it will be our downfall. Starlight cannot win the game with our opening suite of cards. We must draft into them, and so we're just going to take our whole turn 1, just play our Shade the Self-Anew and our Boon of Reimagining in order to get the cards that we need to win. If we don't play these 2 cards and we play really scared and defensive with this Piece of the Nighttime Sky, I can assure you we will be very sad and we will have a lot of regret. So with that being said, we're going to add a presence from this top line to get our new growth option to gain a power card, and we're going to get our first draft of the game. Alright, as a reminder, the elements that I care about strictly in terms of hitting our innate powers, my best ones is going to be Earth and Animal. And then after that, fire's pretty decent, you know, plant's fine, moon is fine. The only ones that I'm really looking to avoid is water. And sun is just, you know, it's going to take too long to get there. So that's just a little bit of elemental framework just to think about. And as I look around here, we are offered no earth. Okay. We're only offered 1 animal. So my 2 favorite elements, we don't have a ton of choices for. If we were to go for the Savage Maw Beasts, this is not giving me a lot of elements to work with, right? Only fire, which is, you know, fine, but it's nothing crazy. And it gives me an animal. Now, we do get double value for getting the triple animal. We get the extra damage on the Savage Maw Beast, which is very nice. But as well as the innate power. But this means that if we do not get triple animal, then this card really becomes unfortunate. So I'm not saying that this card is untakeable, but just something to think about, that in order for Savage Maw Beast to work, we really have to lean into it. It's a lot less likely to just be like a cherry on top of some other thing. Let's go next to Spur On with Words of Fire. It just lets you play another card, right? So you basically you're just going to pay an energy to gain those 3 elements, and then you still get to do the rest of your normal turn, right? So it's a 3rd card play with no text and just gives you Sun, Fire, Air. If we are already teched into any of those colors, it's a great card, right? Just getting extra elements to hit our thresholds can be a very good thing. But as a very first draft, it just doesn't make any sense to me. We want to be taking cards that do things. I think it's a pretty reasonable take. And Spur On with Fire literally doesn't do anything. It just says play another card. It puts pressure on our energy, which could be fine. You know, we could go up to top track and get that 4 energy, but right now, this early in the game, it just doesn't make sense to go for Spur On with Words of Fire. If we want Sun Air, we can go for Enticing. If we want Sun Fire, we can go for Sunset Fire Flows. Like these 2 cards have text on them. Alright, anyways, moving on quickly. Enticing Splendor. We can gather an Explorer or Town fast, or we can gather 2 Dahan. Both of these things are fantastic, right? Breaking up mining lands, creating mining lands can both be good. If we have a land that we're ready to defend, throwing down some Dahan can allow us to make it a much better situation. So Enticing Splendor is one of those cards that we're always going to do well with. Oftentimes the card can be awkward because of the blight restriction. However, this is once again where HME 1 comes to save us. Because there are no cascades, you're not going to get blight just showing up in random lands in a way that screws you down the line. So with less blight distributed everywhere, Enticing Splendor is more likely to be good. Last, we got Sunset Fire Flows. We pay an energy to get a fear and a damage. Compare that to Savage Maw Beast, where you don't pay an energy, and you still get a fear and a damage. Yes, this is terrain restricted, but like, I'll take the terrain restriction for a whole energy worth of savings. The marginal advantage for Sunset Fire is that we could pay an extra energy for another adjacent damage, and we get more elements. However, I think in total, the extra energy and all that makes Sunset Fire Flows a little bit less exciting to me. We got to recognize that doing 1 damage in a land is not very much versus HME. Because of HME 6, we're going to be getting double explorers in our lands. So against a lot of adversaries, like on turn 1, you could just take Sunset Fire Flows and then just be like, all right, we're going to, whatever land comes up next, we just kill that explorer and then life goes on. But against HME, that's just not the case. 2 damage in 1 land is better than 1 damage in 2 lands. So really, we're looking at Enticing Splendor versus Savage Maw Beasts. And I'm thinking Enticing Splendor is better just because Savage Maw Beast takes time to set up. We need to get other good drafts that pair up with it. And we then, if we play Savage Maw Beast, we have to play another animal card. And we have to invest into that animal element just to make this card like pretty decent. Additionally, because the wetlands are already active, it is less likely for it to be useful. Like, we could play Savage Maw Beast next turn, but if this isn't exactly jungles on top, then we're not going to. Whereas Enticing Splendor, I think, is playable in every situation. One use could be to get a presence into the A1, save the Dahan from the A2, pair it up with the A6. You know, paired up Dahan are always better than isolated Dahan. So, like, that little thing can be nice and helpful. And then, of course, all the benefits of gathering. So, I think Enticing Splendor is going to be the pick here. And we're going to shape, renew. And we're going to take a little bit of Blight on the first turn of the game. And then we'll draft a lot. And, oh, yes. Okay. So, Mining Boom. HME is a challenging adversary, a complex adversary, because it also gives more control to the player than any other adversary does. I mean, every adversary gives some amount of control to the player, you know, with your escalation effect. Add a town to a land on the board. Okay, well, I get to choose where it goes, and so I can think it through, and I can put that town into a land where it's going to help the adversaries the least. Now, we also have an escalation, right, where we get to make decisions for the adversary, but we have a second opportunity with this Mining Boom. So you have to do a build and an upgrade. Because there's going to be fewer build actions over the course of the game because of this whole mining land thing, this is the way that the adversary compensates. So we have to ask ourselves, where do we think it's going to be the least punishing? So first things first, we can just eliminate the A8. Disease being a ravage skip is just way too valuable. I don't want to blow up this disease for no particular reason. Okay, so we're not going to go the A8. Now we're looking at the 1 and the 4. Imagine if we Mining Boomed into either one of these. Okay, you're going to be looking at 2 towns for 4 damage. And then let's say it explores. Now there's going to be 4 invaders in that land, and it's going to be a very high damage ravage. Okay, that's going to be a very hard thing for us to deal with. Right now, we do not have the tools to deal with one of those ravages. If we leave them as explorers and it becomes a triple explorer land, we do have a tool to deal with it, right? We can move one single explorer. So we could break up either one of these mining lands if we just don't want to deal with it right now. And so for that reason, like we have that option available to us, but if we choose to Mining Boom here, then that becomes a bad thing. Therefore, that only leaves us the A2 and the A5. And when looking at these two, what I'm thinking about is our loss condition with 8 pieces of plastic being a loss condition. Invaders and Blight, they're both equal. And the quick heuristic to think about is that your Mining Boom net adds 1 piece of plastic. Okay, the upgrade keeps the quantity the same, but the build adds an additional piece. And from that line of thinking, A5 has 4 bits of plastic and A2 has 3 bits of plastic. Therefore, if we were to Mining Boom into the 5, we take on additional loss condition pressure. We get even closer, but if we go into the A2, we are no closer to a loss condition than we were beforehand, right? 4 pieces here, 4 pieces here. We're still 4 steps away in either land, as opposed to only being 3 steps away here. So for all those reasons, we're going to Mining Boom in the A2. Another very important heuristic to think about is this whole like coastal thing against every other adversary, you generally want to be cautious about putting extra invaders into coastal lands, because the coast is the one section of the board that gets an extra card for it. But take a look here at HME4. We remove the coastal card during the setup. We know that the coastal land can never come up. Therefore, in terms of which land is more dangerous, everything is equal. There is not this whole, coastal lands are more likely to come up, more likely to do back-to-backs, and therefore we got to be a little more cautious there. That whole line of thinking that exists with every other adversary does not exist as a problem here. That's why I'm not scared of going into the A2. All right, check it out. We got a Jungles Explorer. So after getting the turn 1 Ravage, we do not have a extra Ravage coming from the build step. Okay, just a good thing to think about. We have an innate power that we can use, but we don't have to use it until after this Boon of Reimagining. When we use Shape the Self anew, we're always going to want to forget it for energy, because this is just not a card we're ever going to play again. And hitting that 4 Moon innate power is just a really funny joke. That's never going to happen. So yeah, we always just forget it for energy, so that way we can swing into a major. I am a big fan of the turn 2 major, but once we forget this, we lose the moon element, so we lose access to the innate. We just got to make sure we order things correctly. I want to do the Boon of Reimagining first, just to get as much information as possible, and we can map out the next couple turns. Okay, so I was just talking about Confounding Mists and how we can use this card with an air innate in order to, use this air innate power and create advantages with it. And I feel like this is a perfect situation for it. That's our only defend card that we're being presented with. I guess Encompassing Ward, but let's be real, come on. But yeah, we're presented Confounding Mists, which does exactly what we need it to do. Very, very funny how it was predicted. So I am looking at this Confounding Mists, but what else do we have here? Drought. Destroying 3 towns and adding a blight. So we could find uses for it, right? This does have 3 good elements on it. However, adding the blight can be a little bit tricky. Recognize that HME1 denies Cascades only from Ravage actions. So if we were to use this Drought here in the A5, we would Cascade. It doesn't deny all, Blight Cascades, only the self-inflicted ones. So that is something to be concerned with. But on the other hand, if we use Drought, maybe we could play Drought with the intention of mining booming here in the A8, because then that would have 3 towns and we could kill them all with Drought, and then we could feel like we're getting great value. And that very well could be the line that we choose to go with, but just recognize that it is a risky card, right? All of the cards that add Blight are very powerful, but also very risky. Encompassing Ward. Defend 2 in all of your lands. It is good, but only in a very narrow sense. We can absolutely make use of it on this next turn. If we get a presence into the 5 and into the 3, we could use our innate power here to move and explore to force this land to Ravage. Then we can defend for 2 here, defend for 2 here, just to prevent a blight so we don't flip the blight card. And, that could be really cool. There's not going to be any use beyond that narrow case. It's just defend 2 just is not enough to be a long-term game plan. And we don't need to have every single card that we draft be, the thing that we're going to hold on to, and it's going to be the cornerstone of our strategy for the whole game, right? But recognize that we're presented a lot of choices here, and this is it's good. Maybe it's not good enough to do everything that we ever hoped and dreamed for. Next, we have Portents of Disaster. This gives us fear and nothing but fear. Generally, raw fear cards are like the icing on the cake. If we are sacrificing the board state, we're doing nothing on the board, and all we're doing is producing fear, we have to hope that that fear is enough to win the game. Because if it's not, then we're kind of screwed. And this early in the game, when we are already starting behind, like, Starlight naturally always starts behind just because, you know, we have to spend our whole first turn drafting as opposed to doing things that interact with the board. And so, yeah, as Starlight, you're always kind of backpedaling in the early game. And, you know, at some point we hope to pick up a major and swing things back in our favor. And then there'll be joy among the land. But this means that we don't have the time. We don't have the excess resources to afford just doing a bulk fear card. Right, and so that just makes this card pretty unplayable. Take all of that and say that Terror Turns to Madness has worse elements by getting that useless water instead of the maybe sort of kind of never really useful sun. And then we find ourselves in the exact same position. Both these cards are right out. Last, that gets us to Sear Anger, and this card is pretty sweet. If we're going to be teching into fire, then Sear Anger is amazing because it allows us to take our 2 damage innate power and turn it into a 3 damage innate power. Once we can start to kill cities, then the game really starts to accelerate towards the end. Once we can get a terror level 3 victory as opposed to like a fear victory, that's really, really nice. However, we don't have like really any other fire cards. We didn't draft one earlier. We have this drought. I'm kind of cold on it. Yeah, I mean, it can be good, but maybe just not right now. So it also gives us the plant, right? So, you know, we could combine that with the Enticing Splendor and then swing into something else, and that can be very nice. But, you know, this card is fine, right? It costs 0, so it's not a very expensive card. But, yeah, just something to think about. So what am I thinking about here? We already have these 2 cards eliminated, so really it's draw 4, keep 2. I am very excited by the idea of using Encompassing Ward for super value. We'll just need to move a presence with the gain of power and then move a presence here in order to set up both of these lands. Use our innate, Dragon the Explorer, force the Ravage. All of that can be really cool, and then we can just dump this for a major because it'll never be useful again. I do think that's very cool. We could also go for a drought. Like, we could go for both of these cards and play them both next turn. Heck, we could even then take the top track Sun, or tech into Sun, so that way the drought can kill the city. If we were to do that, we'd be left with just 2 explorers in the 8, and that's it. It's actually not bad. Because then from there, right, we're looking at either mountains or sands as the follow-up, and that means that no matter which one explores, we could actually get more Encompassing Ward value by defending the 8 and defending whichever one happens to come up next. Ooh, that's a really spicy line. Is that too spicy? I don't know, but that is very exciting. Taking the Sun does open us up to having wasted value down the line, but we do have this Enticing Splendor. Oh man, do I go for it? That's crazy talk. If I'm going to go for it. But the fact that they both have Earth does give me another line. I think if I play both of these cards, I would have to go for the Sun to pick up that city. Because leaving that city alive is like too much. If we leave the city alive, okay, if we leave the city alive, we can tech into Earth. But then the Encompassing Ward loses value. I like the idea of playing Encompassing Wards for 2 turns straight to get all of that value by defending multiple turns in a row. So interesting. I think HME is a super fun adversary, by the way, because it draws you into these fascinating little lines that you would not do in pretty much any other situation. I want to explore this. I do think that, you know, Confounding Mist plus X is a very viable way to play, but I really want to explore this line. And so because I kind of want to force the A1 or the A4 to Ravage, I'm going to pull the Explorer out of the A2. Force this to Ravage. Now we're going to shape this Alpha New, just gain another minor, forget this card for energy. Next turn, we'll probably look to just gain a major and dump this Boon of Reimagining because we're never going to play this card again. And then that'll really build out the shape of what we're going to do. All right, once again, we're not offered traditional defend cards. We have to do something a little more interesting. Also, we're really not being offered animal. And so with the power of hindsight, I'm super glad that we did not take the Savage Maw Beasts. Because, yeah, once again, we're only offered Dire Metamorphosis here, and previously we were offered nothing else. Yeah. Now, Dire Metamorphosis is normally an amazing card, but the fact that we already took Drought makes this card a lot harder to play. Also, an important note with Drought is that when we play it, we are going to flip the Blight card. Something to keep in mind. Roiling Bog snagging Thorn can be a pretty sweet card. Like right here in the A3, we could, defend it, and then the one Dahan doesn't participate, but the other still does, kills 2 explorers, solve the land for next turn. Just a great, happy line to pursue. It solves all the same problems that Encompassing Ward does. Cost 0, 4 elements instead of 3. Just different things to consider. They both have a water, which I don't value too highly. The plant does help you scale into something else once this Defend 2 becomes a little bit useless. But, I don't think those are massive breakpoints because we already have Encompassing Ward and Starlight is a very mobile spirit with its presence. Roiling Bog does lose some steps for me. Now, Scour the Land is another way of adding Blight. It's basically the same thing that Drought is doing, except kind of worse. Had we taken the Air Defend for the Confounding Mist, I'd be a lot more open to taking Scour. Because it, leans into this whole triple air thing, right? With this Enticing Splendor, and our Defend 4, and our Scour the Land, right? That's like a whole package of cards that all lean into the same exact elemental identity. And for the exact same things that I'm thinking about with Drought, we could also Mining Boom in the 8, fast kill everything, kick it down to just a city, defend it for 4, life goes on. So, if you were playing this exact same seed and you went down the air route, I think Scour is a great pick here because we probably would not be holding on to Drought. As is, I'm looking at this Thriving Choke Fungus, and this has a disease in it. It says make a disease. Now, making a disease is insane against HME because that is a full Ravage skip. Now, this only works in 2 terrains, but whatever. It's still a very powerful, very effective card. And the fact that it's terrain restricted, I don't care about because we opened up with the jungle wetlands, which means that all the invaders are in the jungles and the wetlands. These are the lands where we need help. And so having, disease for a Ravage skip that gives a little bit of reprieve when, the card explores and we're like, shit, I got to deal with it. You get to skip it at first. Then the Badlands helps you clear it in the future. So I'm going to take Thriving Choke Fungus here, and I can expect that we're going to be very happy with that choice over the course of the game. Okay. So this turn, we are planning on doing the Encompassing Drought line to defend the 5 and the 3. So to do that, we're going to use the Move a Presence, the Gain a Power card, and then we always want to add a presence in every situation. So let's start by gaining a power card. So we have one last chance to get more information before we commit to this line. I am going to draft a Major here. Boon of Reimagining is never going to be played again, so I don't see any reason to hold on to the card. But also, by getting a Major, it is one last chance before we have to start committing to some of our elements on our tracks. If we, pull a Major that says like the best card, but it really wants us to tech into plant, okay, great. We can make that decision. What do we get? We got Spill Bitterness into the Earth. Fast damage. Once again, adds a Blight. We're being offered a lot of Blight adding cards. But yeah, that is Spill Bitterness. Probably not going to take it, though it is a very powerful effect. 6 damage just leads to a lot of awkward breakpoints. This is 8 HP here, so we kill all this stuff, and then we're still left with a land that's going to Ravage and add Blight. A little awkward. I mean, of course, we do get to add some Strife and Badlands, and all of that is cool, but yeah, it's just awkward. Also, without the Threshold, I think any major power is a lot less exciting. We're really not teched into Fire Water. I'm really not interested into teching into Water, though it is notable that In general, because this adds blight and it forces you to tech into water, it is kind of like a self-cleaning thing. In order to add the blight and, you know, get full value, we also get the ability to remove the blight. It's kind of cute. Next, we got Land Thrash's and Furious Pain, and this is a very exciting card because we are taking a lot of blight, and this converts all of that blight and turns it into damage, and so it is a nice little bit of rubber banding for us. This does look at Moon Earth. The moon is, like, this would be a reason why I'd have to take a moon element on the tracks. I'm not super stoked about the triple moon innate power, but the triple earth is very, very nice. Land Thrash is an interesting one. Unrelenting Growth. 4 elements are great. It's, you know, obviously UG is amazing even without Threshold, but with Threshold, it's incredible as well. Being able to get the blight removal, the extra wilds is cool, but also gaining a power card, because UG is generally one of those cards you just want to play once, and that's kind of it. And being able to gain another power card allows it to replace itself. You could actually gain a major and then forget UG for that other major. It's also very convenient for us that Enticing Splendor already has the 2 elements that we need to threshold the UG. And if we choose to go this sun route, that is one of the 2 elements that we need to pick up an extra one for in order to threshold UG. If we want to take in the plant for the full threshold, we're just gaining like a ton of abstract value. We don't gain anything in particular, but we're going to be scaling super, super hard. And so UG is a very strong pick here. Last, we got Utter Accursed Dread and Bone. Similar to Land Thrash's, it takes blight and converts that into value for us, but I think it does so in a way that's a little bit worse than Land Thrash's. The big marginal advantage of Utter Accursed Dread and Bone is that this adds disease, and it can add disease with Threshold in adjacent lands. And so getting access to Ravage skips in lots of different lands is a very, very powerful thing. It does do less damage, and so by doing less damage, it kind of necessitates the disease to exist. Whereas like with Land Thrash, it does so much more damage that the disease loses a lot of value by, you know, there's no invaders in the land, so like, what do you need the disease for? So you could certainly take either one of these. We don't have any animal, which makes it harder to go for Utter Recurse. We do have a pair of Earth cards, though neither of them have Moon. So Land Thrashes is tricky. You could absolutely draft Land Thrashes. We're going to go for UG, but I think UG is probably the best here. Land Thrashes is next, Utter Curse is third, and Spill Bitterness is dead last. I think there's a bit of a stigma with UG. People are like, oh, you know, it gives you a free whatever. But I will say that HME puts a ton of pressure on you early, and we're already like a very slow developing spirit, and UG is once again a very dirtily slow kind of thing. So this might not be as free as you would think, but that is what we're going to take. I'm thinking we're going to do the whole like encompassing drought thing on this next turn, and then look to Enticing Splendor plus UG next turn, using Enticing Splendor basically just to survive for a turn without taking blight. We're going to add a presence, bottom track, and we're going to unlock the sun. Then we're going to jump a presence here. Drought plus encompassing. Whew, okay. Let's see if we can survive. Alright, Fortune Seekers. Explorer matches all cards with no buildings. Ouch. Okay, well this will lead to an interesting teaching thing, so we'll get there in a second. But generally we're not happy about this event. Just because like any pile of invaders can turn into a massive problem for HME, so that's a little unfortunate. On each board, choose a land with disease. In that land, 2 damage to invaders, 2 damage to Dahan. Okay. This is actually an actively good thing for us. Because previously, with this whole drought, we're going to Mining Boom into the A8. We'd be left with 2 single explorers behind. And then we'd have to like reclaim this encompassing ward in order to deal with it. But by killing these 2 explorers right now, well, next turn, our little problem is solved. So we are very happy to do this. Kind of a funny situation where against pretty much any other adversary, you would kill a town. But against HME, it incentivizes unique play patterns. Each bear with at least 2 Dahan among their lands reclaims a power card or regains a unique. Hey, that's us. Given the choice, I think it's always better to regain a unique, just because it's like a new resource, unless if there's a specific card in your discard pile that you need next turn, and by reclaiming that one card, you don't do a reclaim all, assuming you're one of those spirits, that, wants to do a non-reclaim all option, you want to add presence, things like that. Gaining just a whole aggregate resource, even if it's a card you're never going to use, that just becomes forget fodder for a major. For us, we don't care about any of these. So whatever we take here is just going to be dumped for a major. Okay, Mining Boom. We already talked about this. We're going to go to the A8 because it perfectly synergizes with our Drought. And then we explore everything. Now, it's giving me a prompt here. What's going on? If you take a look at HME 6, it says, the whole, without enough blight, add 1 extra explorer in every land successfully explored. Except it's not every land that's explored. It's only 2 lands per board per explore card. So we're actually being given a choice of which lands want the extra explorer. This means that we get to choose whether or not we want mining lands. It's a very interesting question. So now we have to stop. Let's just think about this for a second. What are we doing next turn, right? We are thresholding UG by playing this Enticing Splendor, and we're going to be going bottom track, picking up a plant element. Okay, pure scaling turn. If we want to get away with a pure scaling turn, what do we need to have happen? Well, we want to make sure that there's just no ravages, right? We're getting rid of everything in the jungle, and if we can have just no ravages straight up, we'll be happy. Well, we can have no ravages if we put extra explorers into the sands. 1 explorer here in the A1, 1 explorer here in the 6. That's good. We want to have only 1 explorer in the A3, so that way, this ravages without defense and it's A-okay. But really, like, the 2 big ones is no second explorer in the 1, no second explorer in the 3. All the rest of them, it kind of doesn't matter. Now, here's the other thing that I'm thinking about. Similar to Scotland, we have 1 invader card, which is guaranteed. And for us, it's the Salt card. So we know what this is going to do. It is only going to explore lands that are not mining, and it's only going to build in lands that are not mining. Okay, so with 2 or fewer invaders are the ones that are going to be active for the explore and build. So the way that we can mitigate the amount of potential strength that the invaders have is by having as many mining lands as possible going into that card, but having all the mining lands be exactly just 3 explorers. If there are 3 explorers in a land, it is mining, therefore it will not explore, it will not take the extra bit of plastic. If you can imagine a way of evaluating the aggregate strength of an invader is by taking the total, attack value, damage value is the same number, right? So let's just call it the strength value of every piece. Explorers a strength of 1, town is a 2, city is a 3. If you take the entire board and aggregate it into one number, you could say that that is, how strong the invader is in that moment. And so if we're given the choice of, does the invader gain more aggregate strength or less, we'd want them to gain less. Therefore, doing double explore here in the A4 is going to prevent an explorer from existing in the future by having this land not be explorable. And here's the thing, right? If this card here is a sand, it doesn't matter if we put 2 explorers there or 1. It's going to take it's going to take an additional explorer anyways, and it's going to become a mining land anyways. So it's kind of like a false issue. It doesn't matter whether or not we put double there. It's going to be mining next time the land comes up. Okay, so now, do we want to double explore the 7? We could double explore the 6 or double explore the 5, okay? One of these 3 must get double. Well, I'm not interested in the 6 just because an Explorer Town is pretty easy to deal with. I mean, heck, we could just Enticing Splendor and just suck the town out, and then bam, this land's just solved. 1 Explorer versus 1 Dahan is a pretty decent trade for us. So if we keep this land small, we're in a happy place. Therefore, we're only looking at the 5 versus the 7. And if we put a single Explorer in the 7, because since we're going to flip the Blight card here and that's going to disable the 6, we can make it such that if Sands comes up, this is not a mining land. That would be a good thing for us. If we double explore here, it's going to explore no matter what when the mining card comes up. So for all of those reasons, like, we can't force this land to be mining. The only way we could really do that is if we double explore and mining boom into this land, which a lot of things are going to happen between then and now, which makes me less excited to do that. I'm going to do double explore in the 5. I hope that made sense, right? Like, we could still mining boom here in the 7, and then the salt will explore and then just won't build. And that's another way of, like, kind of sort of mitigating the strength of the invaders. It's not like to the absolute massive dramatic scale that, you know, the A4 is mitigating the strength of the invaders, but, you know, it's about a halfway step. All right, we're going to drought, and we are going to find out what the Blight card is, because that's an important thing to figure out. This could have massive ramifications. Also, shout out the fact that we only have 3 presents on the board, because if Tipping Point was still in the game, we might just lose. But thankfully, it is not still in the game, and so we are safe from that one specific card. Immediately add a town and a city to an inland land with no buildings. Okay, once again, if we add pieces to the board, we can control the invaders. And what I'm looking at here is we can just make land number 7 into a mining land. We spent all this time talking about how we couldn't, you know, force that to happen. And now we're presented with the way to do it. If you want to be crazy, we could go into the 5 and then turn it into a loss condition and then really put the pressure on ourselves. Let's not do that. Okay, so we're playing Enticing Splendor just for the elements, but as I'm looking around, I really don't know, like, what we're going to do with it, because we have this line of Blight going right up the middle, making it such that we can only target a couple of lands, and none of them are lands that we, like, want to target. It's kind of weird. We know we're going for this plant element, and I'm going to add it here into the 5. The placement of this presence doesn't super matter just because we're going to UG and then we can go anywhere with it. And we're going to UG with information as to what's coming up next, which is nice. So, yeah, let's go here. Let's gain our plant. Gain an energy. And honestly, I might just go for another major just because we got this boon of reimagining. So by getting another major now, it will help us when we do our draft for UG. If we need to take a certain minor power to flesh out those elements in order to threshold it. And what do we get here? We got Vigor of the Breaking Dawn. Well, if... it was funny. Ty was just talking about this in one of his videos where he's like, you could take Vigor of the Breaking Dawn and people are going to be like, man, the run doesn't count. You took Vigor of the Breaking Dawn right after taking UG. Meh. And then if you don't take it, it's going to be like, meh, why didn't you take the best card there? So what are you going to do? We're presented with a card. We're already teched into Sun. Like, Vigor of the Breaking Dawn just makes a lot of sense to take here. We do have some Dahan movement with this Enticing Splendor as well, so we can set up good Vigor plays. So Vigor immediately sticks out as a card to take, right? We got the Sun, so we on 2 card plays. We can do that, and then we just need to draft any Sun animal card. and that'll threshold it, right? That's a very strong thing. What else are we looking at? Insatiable Hunger the Swarm is another blight adding card. Now, we've already flipped the blight card, and so from one perspective, we're no longer punished by adding blight, like the whole binary of are you healthy or are you blighted. We've already crossed that line. We are blighted. There is no going back, and so there's not like this whole like, I don't want to take blight because I don't want to flip the blight card. That whole stressor does not exist. A funny thing is actually if we remove a blight with UG, then we're going to re-enable HME 6. So playing a card like Insatiable Hunger in order to add the blight back in order to re-disable HME 6 is a genuine consideration. That being said, I don't like Insatiable Hunger just like in the abstract without any other way of having extra beasts. As is, it's just add a blight, deal 6 damage, which is like, I don't know, feels underpowered. Certainly the cost of adding the blight does not feel nearly good enough to get only 6 damage. I mean, heck, we got 9 damage worth of value out of this drought, and that's only 1 energy. So yeah, Insatiable Hunger, I don't think it does enough for what we're trying to do here. Dissolve the Bonds of Kinship. This takes buildings and turns them into explorers, which is actually like a problem because it for like I'm thinking about like the loss condition, right? If we have just too many explorers, that's a loss condition. It doesn't have to be a giant pile of buildings in order for us to lose like against England. It just got to be anything. And so when cities become 2 explorers, we're actually increasing the total number of invaders in the land, even if the aggregate strength, like we were just talking about, you know, the aggregate total power of all the invaders across the board goes down. There's just more invaders, and so you're likely going to lose. And then even that, in the abstract, it's just not generally a very strong card. It requires us, I think it requires Threshold for it to be playable, and we are so not teched into Fire, Water, Animal. We are not in that combination at all. Last is Exaltation of Incandescent Sky. Some people say this is the best card in the game. It does everything. It's a spur. It's a lightning's boon. It is damage. It is, you know, skips, like skip any actions, you know, with the threshold. Like this card does absolutely everything. I've seen in multiplayer games, someone drafts this and literally like that's your game plan. Everyone just gets all their resources combined, Ellie boons, nature connections, extra energy, just trying to funnel everything into the Exaltation player so they can play that card with Threshold every single turn, and it's a legitimate win condition. That is not what we're looking at here today. The plant element that we're teched into, we're not going to get use from. The sun element we would get use from for this Threshold. However, just there's so many elements, 12 elements to threshold this. That is so hard to pull off. And without Threshold, I don't think this card is worth it. It gives in solo, right? We are both the target spirit and ourself, meaning that we get to play 2 power cards. We get to make 4 cards fast. We get to do 3 damage in 2 lands. And that's really cool, but we're not going to be able to get all of that value. Like by the time that we get to pull that off, we're probably just going to win anyways. So just a really hard card to use. Now, it is important to note, if you are going to play this card in solo, that when you get to play those 2 extra cards, the elements from those cards in play can actually help you threshold here. Since you execute the card from top to bottom, you add the extra cards into play, and then you check for your threshold. It goes in that order. And so that is a way, like specifically with Starlight, you don't have a ton of card plays. So that's kind of a way to get those extra elements into play and to cheat around that problem. However, even with that into consideration, that is like magical Christmas land. And by the time that it works, we've probably just won anyways. Why not take a card that costs half the price and just has immediate effect? Kind of similar to this whole UG draft. Like if there was another like good major, I would strongly consider going for that other major, just so that way it's not like a, you know, UG game or a Vigor game. But I mean, this is kind of like a pile of trash. It's like the only good card in the abstract. So it is what it is. Trust me, if you've watched my other videos, you know that I will dodge a lot of these so-called OP majors for the purpose of diversity of content. But hey, You gotta play the cards that you're dealt. After doing all that, we get to move a presence, and all that I'm thinking is that since we're going to create our own sacred site, it kind of doesn't matter where we go. I'm just going to put my presence into lands with Dahan just because there are events that give us benefits from having presence in lands with Dahan. There's one of them, the most in the game is if you have 4 Dahan in your lands, you get to draft a free minor power, so it unlocks access to that. Earlier, we already got, if you have 3, you get to reclaim a card. We already cashed in on that one. Of course, other things exist. So let's just give ourselves access to opportunities. Still don't know what we're going to do with this Enticing Splendor. We kind of don't need to do anything with it. I do want to get some Dahan together. I would really like to get Dahan into like the 5, so we could Threshold Vigor here in the 7, slide Dahan over, and then clear this land. But alas, there's this Blight in the way. We could UG here in order to remove the Blight, but of course, order of operations, we're stuck with what we've got. I genuinely don't think we do anything with this Enticing Splendor. I don't see a way to gain value from it, except maybe like pulling an Explorer from the 5 to the 7 just to reduce the plastic counts in the 5. Sure. I don't think that's going to be an impactful choice whatsoever in the grand scheme of things. Okay, buildings of extra HP, that's okay. Beast, kill, oh wait, just kidding. We are blighted. Add a blight to a land adjacent to blight. Or we can sack 2 presence. We certainly could sack 2 presence, right? We got this UG coming up, so we're going to get our 2 presence right back. Or we can add a blight, which is not a big deal. If I were to add blight, I'd go to the A6. Mostly because if we go into a blighted land, it cascades, and we have presence in the 3 and the 7 that I'm not looking to lose for free. So I think both of these choices are totally fine, whichever way you want to go. I'm going to take the blight. Alright, Beast, kill, explorers. So this does not come up here, but a thing that is crazy against HME is I think beasts are oftentimes not your friend in this matchup. Let's just imagine that this game was playing out a little bit differently. Remember when I was originally, way back, golly, like fucking half an hour ago, 1 turn ago, 45, I don't even know, this is crazy, where I was talking about where we might want to do a reclaim 1 for this encompassing ward. And the reason is if you can remember way back then, we thought we were going to be left with 2 leftover explorers in the 8, and we thought that if we explore the mountains, we'd be taking 2 explorers into the 1. So we'd be looking at a little Ravage here and a little Ravage here. And so, we can just defend both of them and life would be hunky-dory. If we had that set up and by some means move this Dahan over to the 1, right? Maybe we played Enticing Splendor to pair up with this Encompassing Ward with the idea of, counterattack and improve our situation. This event would totally screw us. And so I do think it is amazing if we can go for those force tiny little ravages and, have the invaders beat themselves up before they become a threat at all. I think that's a great way to go against HME, but you cannot rely on that in beast lands. So I've been screwed over by that before. As a general rule of thumb, don't try and set up those plays in lands with beasts if you have the ability to avoid it. So maybe a better way to do it is to put our presence into the 6, assuming we double explore the 1, double explore the 6. And instead of pulling the Dahan from the 6 to the 1, we would pull an Explorer from the 1 to the 6, execute the exact same game plan, but just 1 land over where this beast event would not screw us. And then last we get a free Dahan. Yay! Push an Explorer from a land with invaders or gather an Dahan into a land with invaders. I was just talking about how if we could somehow get a Dahan into the 5, I'd be super happy. And this is our somehow. Now I'm looking to Vigor in the 7, slide it over to the 5, basically for chunk value. All right, now we got to Mining Boom. And we have another stage 2 card. This could be any terrain. And then we have the salt card coming up, right? So previously I was talking about forcing lands to become mining lands intentionally so that way they don't explore for the salt card. But if we take a look at this situation, every single inactive land is already a mining land. So that line of thinking isn't going to improve our situation. We could, do like the 1 and the 6, but these lands are about to ravage, and we don't really have much of a game plan. The only defense that we've got is this encompassing ward. We very well could do that. Maybe we like UG into the 6, reclaim and play this encompassing ward just to deny a couple of blight. We don't have any other means of handling them. Our Vigor of the Breaking Dawn, our big, scary, OP major, cannot get the job done. So I don't want to go into here. And then once we're looking at these other lands, we got to start thinking about our loss condition and trying to put invaders into places that we're going to mess with anyways. This land number 4 is the weakest we can possibly make a land while having it still be mining, and I'd like to preserve that. We can't go into the 2 because of a lack of explorers, so we're only looking at the 5 and the 7. Now, conveniently, these are the 2 lands that we're already planning on blowing up with Vigor of the Breaking Dawn. In land number 7, we're going to get 4 damage, and in land number 5, we're going to get 6 damage. So, the extra HP, the extra strength worth of invaders that we're going to add with this Vigor are immediately going to be canceled out, adding the extra strength with the Mining Boom is immediately canceled out by this Vigor. And so for that reason, we're going to go here in the 5. Now, important thing to note is we are ever creeping closer to a lost condition. So if we get a Wetlands Explorer right now, just a thing to be cognizant about. Could get rough. My golly, I'm Nostradamus. All right, now we have to do a little bit of escalation, just doing a couple free explores. Once again, we have to think about the way that this interacts with the salt card. Let's just take a look at this land number 8. Right now it's empty. If we leave it empty and we don't escalate in this land, it'll come in with an explorer from the salt card. It'll build a town. There will be 2 invaders in that land. It is not a mining land and therefore will not ravage. But if I explore right now, it explores for the salt card, it builds, then it does ravage. So if we were to escalate into these jungles right now, we give the invaders a path towards becoming another problem that we have to deal with. And against HME, what we'll find is that right when the salt card comes up, it is when we have like the most problems in the most lands all at the same time. And that's like peak stress that we got to deal with. And it's a very uncomfortable situation. Let's not create extra problems for ourselves. Let's not give the invaders an opportunity. Of course, like there's a 1 in 3 chance that this is jungles and it ravages anyways. But there's a 2 in 3 chance that it's not jungles, and then it does not have to become a big problem and a big pain in our ass. So we are going to just simply keep the invaders in these lands, try and reduce all the different ways that we can get blown up. Okay, we have UG, that's a double proliferation and gain a power card, and this is just gain a power card. When we double proliferate, I'm probably just going to go here and pick up this reclaim. It's a pretty safe and reliable way to go. You're never sad about that. Like in what situation you're just like not going to want to reclaim, right? Of course, when we do that, we have to commit to an element. And, maybe we have commitment issues, maybe we don't want to, lock ourselves down, baby. We don't want to, we got to explore our options. Also, if we're doing 2 drafts right now, we don't need to reclaim immediately. So we could, if we didn't want to commit to anything in particular, we could go up to 2 energy, 3 card plays, right? We could go for like, some combination of things where we don't need to pick up an element. But I think we have a general sense of what we want to be doing anyways. But just in case, we're going to do our draft first. One last chance for us to see what we might want to get before we go somewhere else. Now, because we already got Vigor and we kind of got energy problems, I'm not really looking to pull another major here. So I am going to draft a minor. All right. Well, hey, if you needed a card to set up your Vigor of the Breaking Dawn, is there any card in the game that's better than Promises of Protection? Right? We needed exactly a Sun Animal card in order to, get Vigor online. We have Sun Animal. We want Dahan movement to make sure Vigor is hitting the lands that we want to be hitting. This is Dahan movement. This is everything that we want. And of course, if we get that third animal, then we have two sources of Dahan movement, and we can basically set up Vigor every single turn for the rest of the game, and then we'll just be incredibly happy. So Promise of Protection is going to be our slam pick, but we're going to be doing this in the Overexplained way. We're going to go through every single option here. Absorb Corruption. We are teched into Sun Plant, right? So this goes into what we're already teched into. It's going to help us hit those. And then that Earth element is amazing, right? Getting that defend is a very, very powerful thing, especially coming into the turn where there's going to be shit going off everywhere. The problem with Absorb Corruption is that the text on the card is kind of useless. We don't care about taking Blight. Because things can't cascade, even if we're going to be ravaging in like every land on the board all at the same time, that doesn't matter because nothing's going to cascade. Like, we're totally cool. We're totally safe. So that's a reason why we're not interested in it. Now, Rouse of Trees and Stone cannot target blighted lands. And guess what? We got blight everywhere. So it's really hard to find a place to use Rouse. Now, on turn 1, I think this is one of the best cards we could ever ask for. Dealing 2 damage, can just kill a whole explored land. The double explorers comes in, you just kill them both. You're feeling very good about yourself. If it's a mining land with 3 explorers, it still full clears by killing 2, pushing 1. Still amazing. All 3 of the elements are really good. I think this card's awesome in the early game, but we're no longer in that early stage of the game. And so the way that this played out with taking all of this early blight is very unfortunate, but it means that Rouse is no longer interesting to me. Now, Tormenting Rotflies, this card is amazing. Once again, adding disease is a whole Ravage skip. I'm looking at the fact that wetlands are active. Wetlands are huge, and we would love to be able to skip things in these lands. And so Tormenting Rotflies is very useful. Of course, the Sands is the other terrain, and lots of invaders here. Right? If this was like a mountain jungle restricted card, I would not be very interested because the mountains and jungles are very peaceful. Kind of funny, by the way, Sands hasn't even come up yet, and yet these lands are huge. Just how it happened. But yeah, Tormenting Rotflies, sweet card. Remember way back in the early game when we considered going for an air game? Tormenting Rotflies would be a slam dunk if we had taken that route. But alas, this became a sun game, so Promises of Protection is our pick. All right. We've got this going. All we have to do is, keep it up. Trying to decide if I want to go top or if I just want to go pick up the Reclaim. Probably just going to pick up the Reclaim. And then we're just going to grow here and we kind of wind up in the same energy situation both ways. But I already know what we need, so it's kind of a false choice. We're going to go... I could go into the 6, but I'm thinking about going into the 2. Because the 6, I can... actually, here's a thought. I could go for a 3rd card play just to play this Encompassing Ward. And a benefit of doing that is that gets us quad Sun. 3 Sun cards in play, plus the one that we already got off our tracks. And... that means that we just don't take this Reclaim here, right? We don't need that 3rd animal element. So if we went for like... because it's going to cost 3-4 energy. 1. That means we're going to have to go for Presence. +1 energy. Presence, +1 energy. And then, I don't know, draft or something like that. And so we'd be getting +1 energy. So that'd be 1, 2, up to yeah. We definitely need to hit this here. I think we just go like the 2 and the 3, and then we can start working our way towards the Reclaim All. Choosing to go here instead of the 6 simply because this is a greater LC threat. You know, we're expecting we're going to take a little bit of blight here. We don't have a plan for it in the short term. So just by removing the blight specifically here, it's going to help us out. Even if we defend the 6, it's not like this is putting loss condition pressure on us. Ooh, Mesmerized Tranquility is kind of cool. But we are looking at 2 cards that also threshold Vigor of the Breaking Dawn. Very interested in both of these because if we're just going to be reclaiming 1 card off of this Quad Sun, we'd probably want it to be our best card. And so if we can threshold this card turn over turn over turn, we'll be very happy. And we already talked about the energy problems that we're having. And so the 0 cost 2 element is more interesting to me than the 1 cost. Even though this gives us the plant, which we are a little teched into with the, plants on our bottom track. That is cool. The blight removal is cool because all of our blight is in these terrains. Like, we're going to get tons of value from this card. I am concerned about the energy problems that we're inevitably going to run into by trying to throw down a major every single turn. Territorial Strife is also great just because it can kill 3 invaders in one single action. So we could make this land number 7 go from a mining land, not build, kill the 3 explorers, and it's a non-mining land, so it doesn't ravage either. Let's explain the rest, right? Teaming Rivers is cool. Mesmerized Tranquility is a sweet defend card. I think it's really, really good against HME because it's like just all these explorers, right? It just neuters all of them, and it can be very efficient. It's completely off color for us. We haven't teched into any of those, and we're not planning to either. Uncanny Melting is pure blight removal with nothing else going on, and it's even more off element, so like that's not going to be the pick. It's absolutely between Territorial Strife and Teeming Rivers. If we had a teammate who was feeding us energy, Teeming Rivers would be good, but I feel like my energy situation is very tight, very constrained right now, so we got to go Territorial Strife. In fact, I'm wondering if we play Territorial Strife over Promises of Protection this turn, because if we play Promises, like, what are we doing with it? I don't know. I got no plan. We could Territorial Strife and do something. And then Promises is better because after we do our whole shindig with Vigor, it lets us set up for the next cool shindig that we want to do. Okay, so we're going to... We could play all 3 of these, actually, with our 3 card plays. Because we're going to go up to 4 energy here. We have to add the presence before we draft. That's unfortunate, because if I knew that we were going to be getting a 0 cost perfect element card, I would go for the 3 and then here to get our reclaim a little bit faster. But as it... Actually, no, it doesn't matter. We play the 3 cards, we remove here, and then we get the reclaim all and play all 3 cards again. We're chilling. We're in a great place. So we go here, we can gain a card. We can gain a major and dump this UG. We're definitely done with it. No reason to ever play it again. And look at that, another Sun Animal card. Whoopah! And it also has the whole, like, fire threshold. So the Territorial Strife is pretty interesting. I also realized that we needed to do Encompassing Ward to stop these blights. Oh, that's a big screw up. That is a big whoops. Because we have extra energy, I actually might undo the energy for the Reclaim 1 to save us. That is a blunder. But yeah, Angry Bears is a perfectly fine card, right? It's nothing game-breaking, but we could use it pretty well. Like, after we get a escalation into here, we're going to get efficient value. Of course, it's going to explore by not being a mining land, so we could play Angry Bears this turn, threshold it with the Territorial Strife, and be very happy with ourselves. I think this will be pretty good in general. Focus of the Land's Anguish is another very takeable card. We have plenty of Blight, and so we will be able to use this for its full value, gathering 5 Blight into a land and just obliterating it. getting brick loads of fear. So both of these cards are pretty sweet. Of course, Focus costs 5 instead of 3, making it much harder to play. Angry Bears with the other splash elements can, help us do Dahan things, and, maybe we wind up picking up a fire for this Territorial Strife. That is all good stuff. Now, on the other hand, Smothering Infestation and Thickets Erupt are also very easy for us to threshold and very good cards. Thickets Erupt is a triple plant card. We are, of course, already teched into plant. And we actually, are kind of moving away from plant. But we still have Enticing Splendor, which, leans to the whole sun thing. Enticing Splendor plus Thickets. Being able to do 4 damage and remove a blight fast is a really big deal. The wilds are cool. It can lock out a land for the rest of the game because we can keep escalating into that land and, getting value from that wilds even if the cards aren't showing up naturally. But yeah, 4 damage fast and removing a blight is such a stress reliever. It feels really, really good. Being fast as opposed to slow is a really big deal here. Smothering Infestation can do amazing things. Of course, we are looking to get a lot of strength and power done in these wetlands, and it pairs up perfectly with this thriving choke fungus in order to blow everything up. Adding a disease, really big deal. But of course we add a disease and then you blow up the land. So I guess if it explores afterwards, then it solves the immediate problem. Anyways, kind of a funny non-bow that exists here that doesn't exist elsewhere. I think Focus Land's Anguish is right out simply because it costs 5 energy. These other ones all cost 3. Angry Bears is, if we're talking about Smothering Infestation being terrain restricted, so is Angry Bears. The big thing for Angry Bears is that it has great elements to go with this Vigor and, our Sun, game plan. I really think the choice is between Angry Bears and Thickets Erupt. And I think both of them are perfectly takeable here. Though I feel like Thickets Erupt gives us a certain degree of flexibility that Angry Bears does not. Because Thickets Erupt will allow us to use Vigor to bring our Dahan kind of towards the coast and allow us to ignore land number 8 or land number 7, which Thickets can just blow up, solve that little problem, and then we don't need to be as action inefficient with our Dahan. So we could use our Animal for the damage portion as opposed to the Dahan movement portion, and just getting more damage in total will make us better. So yeah, I like this as a good pressure release valve. And we're going to slide here, and I'm going to undo gaining this energy. And we are going to reclaim 1, picking up this Encompassing Ward, because I need to play this. Yeah, no reason to promises, because we've already got our whole deal set up. We're already going to go here. Great. GR8. Encompassing Ward. Defends all the things they need defending. Vigor. Because Territorial Strife is active in a land with cities, and we only got 2 cities on the island, I kind of want to keep the city alive just to keep my choices around. The only reason that I would want to kill the city is if we kill City Explorer, it stays mining and therefore doesn't explore. But I'm trying to imagine a situation where we don't use Territorial Strife in the A2. I can't imagine one. Yeah, let's just kill the city. Let's bring these guys both in. We could kill 4 explorers here and a town, or we can kill 2 towns, 2 explorers. Both ways make us into a non-mining land. But if we kill this, it is better for us because now we're going to build a town instead of a city, and it does not explore because it'll be a mining land at that time. If we, killed all the explorers and killed a town, then it would be a town that would build a city and explore as an explorer, looking at a 6 damage ravage, as opposed to here where we're looking at a 4 damage ravage. I guess you could make the argument where Vigor, we're already set up for dealing 6 damage in that land, so like you get that vigor value, but we've already seen the events. Now we're stuck. Remove a blight per player from the blight card and return it to the box. Or you can sack 2 presents. At this point, we've got so much presence on the island, we can certainly sack presents. And we are going to be losing presence in the A2 anyways, so we could just blow up this whole sacred site. And it kind of sort of is only sacking 1 presence to prevent a blight. If we take the blight, we're kind of losing a presence anyways. So you kind of find yourself in the same situation, right? Because if we went into any of these lands, it would cascade. And it would cascade into a land that we have presence, because we have presence in every single unblighted land. So at first it sounds bad to sacrifice 2 presence, but then you think about it and you realize that you'd be in the exact same situation no matter which choice you made. It's just that sacking presence means you take less blight. ISO a land with Beast and Fear. This is a really big deal because the land's going to be isolated. It means it will not explore. It will not become a mining land, which means that it's actually going to build, right? So this little isolation makes it go from a 4 damage ravage up to a 6 damage ravage when that time comes around. Added Dahan to the land with the most Dahan. Oh my golly. Well, we have better adjacencies here in the 5, so I'm definitely looking to go here. Replace a town with 2 explorers. 1 fear per player who does this. Okay. All right. So, this is awesome, right? This is a really good thing for us because, once again, thinking about the whole, is it a mining land? Is it not a mining land? We don't care about quality of invaders. We care about quantity of invaders. And check it out, in the 1 and the 6, if this fear card did not exist, okay, there's no ravage, blight, whatever, right? And that's not going to change if we do it here or not. But it's going to explore, and then it's going to not build, and then ravage for 4. By doing this and making this into a mining land, it's not going to explore, it's not going to build, it's going to be a 3 damage ravage. And a 3 damage ravage is solved with Encompassing Ward. Okay? This is our only defend card, and it sucks, but it gets the job done in this very narrow niche situation. So I'm going to do that here in the 6. Yeah, we're going to do it in the 6. No, just kidding. Because I just talked about how it's going to be a 6 damage ravage here in the 1. So yeah, we're going to go to the 1. I was thinking about the whole beast thing, but like, we still take the explore here, and then we're looking at a 3 and a 4, as opposed to a 3 and a 6. So we're better off this way. Mining Boom. We can Mining Boom here in the 6 and make it up to a 7 damage ravage. And then it would not explore. But I'm thinking about this land number 5 now, and because we got the extra Dahan there, this Vigor the Breaking Dawn, using it again in the 5, is just absolute gangbusters powerful. And so if we were to Mining Boom here, it becomes 8 power worth of value. If as a shorthand, if you've kind of got like your heuristic set up with France, with like, empty land, double explores, escalates, builds, upgrades, right? Empty land becomes 8 damage. Anyway, similar thing. This becomes 8 damage, and our 4 Dahan will full clear it. Really big deal. So for that reason, I'm looking to escalate here. We could Vigor bounce out a number of different ways. We could just send 2 Dahan back to the 7 and then completely pocket this land out by emptying the 5, the 8, and the 7. So if it comes up again, then we'll be in a really good place. I could do other things with it, but I think all situations start with Vigor going here to the 5. Okay, only 2 lands that we can use Territorial Strife. We've already got a solution for land number 5. So looking at this A2, we can either strife off something, strife off a city, or we can kill Explorer Town. Both of them decrease the damage on the land by 3. And given the choice, generally just killing things and making fear is better. We're very low on fear in general. I mean, that's kind of like a Starlight thing where we don't produce a lot of fear because, you spend a lot of time just dirtling trying to figure your life out. We are going to get a big explosion of fear here with this innate power, which of course we can use right now since we're planning on reclaiming this vigor. And we might just do a reclaim all anyways. I'm also actually, by the way, thinking about doing this +3 energy button, but we'll get there in a second. This Territorial Strife, just getting the fear, getting the value when you have the opportunity. Like, if we do Strife, I mean, what are we doing with it? I guess we could do some sort of, like, bring Dahan in and then, Vigor it and all kinds of stuff, and then Strife and then Dahan and the counterattack, but I think it might be going a little bit too deep. So let's just get our damage and move on. Okay. I oftentimes find that this is kind of the easiest turn of the game. It's the only turn in the game when the Salt card is here in the build slot that we cannot get a Ravage in the build slot. Turn 1, right? We took a Ravage in land number 5. Okay, that's a lot of pressure. Every single other turn in the game, we could potentially take an extra Ravage in the build slot, but this is the only time where we cannot. And we can deny a lot of the builds. So this turn right here, whatever turn number it is turn 5. Turn 5 is the moment where we can take full control of the game. And so it behooves us to do so. If we do this whole Vigor thing, we could like eat a Blight in the A2 and like whatever life goes on. But like if we choose to do that, right, we can blow up the 5. We can then slide the 2 Dahan over, completely blow up the 7. I'm looking at doing like a Thickets Are Up with Threshold in order to empty out the 6. And then all of a sudden, if we take care of those 3 lands, we're only looking at, like a pile of Explorers. We have one single big scary, and that's it. It's a good thing for us. Important to note that if we gain 1 fear, then Piece of the Nighttime Sky is not playable. But as I was talking about before, I didn't explicitly say it, but preventing a Ravage, defending a land that's ravaging with no Dahan counterattack is just a waste of time. And so Piece of the Nighttime Sky is generally a waste of a card. I didn't mention it, but the only time that I would ever advocate for defending without Dahan is when you have the back-to-back of, the same exact terrain being your last stage 1 into the same terrain being your first stage 2. That's a situation where you could consider it because you stopped 2 Blight instead of 1. This game we went mountains into wetlands, so that didn't come up, and I just didn't think to mention it. But yeah, outside of that, piece is just not playable. We'd rather just do things. Okay, so I think my game plan is going to be Thresholding Vigor. We can certainly use this Promise as a protection for thresholding purposes, but then also just to kind of get these Dahan out of the corner and into the game. If I had access to defend, I would certainly, maybe we draft into a Earth card, right? Because if we can, Dahan and defend the A2, that would be pretty sweet because it would, obviously stop the Blight. We counterattack, kill the city. After it builds, it's not a mining land. Then it can't explore, so it can't become a mining land for a while. It could be a pretty sweet solution. We are looking at being on 3 energy. So Vigor plus Promises cost 3. If we take this node here to unlock our Reclaim, that'll unlock our ability to get that Earth. And it gives us the +1 energy, so we can afford any Earth card. If we wanted to guarantee it, we could Encompassing Ward here. And then also we get the benefit of getting the Quad Sun. I mean, just from a strictly elemental perspective, Sun Earth is the dream pull. Sun Earth Animal, if we just perfectly match this Promises of Protection, that would be the hella dream pull. I don't even know if there are any Sun Earth Animals left. I guess there is the card I've been using as an example for a while, the 2 damage, kill a Dahan from a Sacred Site, the Ants card. Wherever that is. Did it already pass it up? No. Yeah, because we haven't gotten any animal cards this whole time. Yeah, Devouring Ants right here. I guess this card would actually just be the god tier pull, because in addition to all the elemental stuff, we could then, like, you know, turn this land number 4 into just 2 explorers, which is pretty sweet. Empty up the A to the 3, which, you know, could matter. Anyways, that, I guess, is the single best possible thing that we could draft. And if we miss, we can draft, we can add a presence and then reclaim to get this back anyways. Sure. Aw, never lucky. Boo. I mean, domesticated animals is actually a pretty sweet pull, though. We can domesticated animals. That's a defend 5. And then it also does not force us to tech into an element that we don't care about, because we're doing perfectly fine without the earth. So actually, I'm very happy with this domesticated animals pull. Now, whichever one I go for, I have to commit to an element. And I don't know what element I'd want to go for. We could do a second sun, just so that way we can go like Promises, Vigor, and then not have to play any more sun cards. However, I've got a lot of suns here. I could just kind of pick up like this guy here, super non-committal. I could go here for the +3 energy, which might be helpful. But yeah, so domesticated animals like does everything we want in the A2. Call to Dahan Ways is pretty cool. We have 7 Dahan on the board already, so we don't need more. We have plenty to do all the Vigor stuff. Once you get 4 in a group, you with Promises, right, you can pull 2, and then you can shoot and move, shoot and move, shoot and move. So Call to Dahan Ways is sweet, but we just don't need it. Drift Down to Slumber defends terrains that we're generally okay in. Yeah, Bulk Defend I don't think is a big deal right now. Light Calls to Light just doesn't do anything for us. In fact, it can make us lose by bringing 3 pieces of plastic into a land. That'll help us lose. So, yeah, we're going to go for this domesticated animals. Slide a presence over. And I think I'm going to go for the +3 energy button. Just so that way we can reliably afford what we want to do every single turn. This looks very, very strong to me. Let's go Promises, bring in these guys in. Domesticated to defend. Vigor to full clear here. And then I'm going to choose to empty out the 7. Simply because like the 4 and the 6, a Thresholded Thickets Erupt will full clear plus remove the Blight and all the pocketing reasons. We're going to clear out the 7. Now, recognize that we could break the pocket right now just by building in the A8. But we might get a fear card that's like, move and explore. And so in the fringe opportunity that we get that, we can take that little card, which usually doesn't accomplish anything, and it can snowball into a huge advantage. If island is blighted, push a town from a land with 2 or more buildings to a land with no buildings. Well, we're pushing the town out of here, which means that the wetlands is going to be full clear with 2 wilds. That's pretty sweet. It does nothing if we push it into the A1 or the A4. If we push it into the A3, then it'll become a mining land after the build. So we're definitely not looking to go here. Either one of these is okay. Maybe we go to the A4 just so that we can target it with thickets, kill town, +2 explorers, so it's still not going to be a mining land. Oh, destroy 2 explorers with beast. Okay, sorry. I should have looked at the entire thing before making a comment, but because of killing the explorers with a beast, that's another reason to go to the A4. Because after we kill 2, we're going to be left with a single explorer, so it's going to build a town, and it's not a mining land, which means it's not going to ravage. So if we push the town into the 1, we're basically creating more problems for ourselves. This, assuming that like nothing crazy happens, we're only looking at 2 lands that are ravaging, and one of them is already fast solved with Thickets Erupt. We only have to worry about like 1 single land. We're in a very comfortable position. Obviously, we still have the mining boom, things like that, but I don't think there's any value in, like, stressing too hard about that because we have 3 fear cards, and the 3 fear cards are going to really change the way that the board looks. And so I don't know, there's nothing we can do to, like, stop us from having to do it. You know what I mean? It's all good. Oh, by the way, this fear card that just showed up is super relevant. It prevents the building of a city in a coastal land, which is a trick. So we can mining boom into a coastal land that has a town, so it'll upgrade, but it will not build. And therefore, we can deny some strength from existing. Strife a town, and then strifed invaders have minus HP. That's all cool. We can strife. If our plan is to thickets here... So since we know that we can get a little cheeky with our mining boom, I am planning on mining booming into the 3. Already has the Dahan here, so if things get kind of hokey, we can shoot it with Vigor. We can defend it with Domesticated. We could do things with it. But, and by hokey, I mean, like, if it's exactly jungle's coming up, it'll be a 5 damage Ravage. Domesticate Animals gets the job done, among other things. So we already know we're going to be, or probably going to be mining booming in the A3. Do I strife the 6 or the 4? It really comes down to, like, this Thickets Erupt. I might just Thickets Erupt in the 6 just so it's, like, full cleared as opposed to, like, kind of, sort of, almost cleared. Which means that I want to invest my resources, my defensive free resources, into the A4. Explore does not affect the coastal lands. Hey, look at that. The whole thing that I was just talking about where, like, we might explore into the 3 and that could be really awkward is no longer a problem. So, yeah, once again, like, all the plans that we had for, like, what we might do for mining boom is changed by those fear cards. And so now I can go here into the 3 feeling fully safe that this cannot become a mining land. Even when Jungles explores, it does not go. Now, because of the double Ravage, I've now changed my mind where Thickets Erupt is going to hit this 8. Okay, obviously we get double value from clearing it, so that's where we're going to go. Now, from this, I think if we try and explore the coast, we can't. Let's check that fear card again. Explore does not affect coastal lands, so yeah, we can explore the 1, boom, it's denied. We can explore the 2, boom, it's denied. We have prevented... those fear cards saved a city and 2 explorers. So that's 5 power was stopped just by those fear cards. That was super good for us. So, a lot of things have changed, and now we got to think about what we're going to be doing. I was just saying that I might Thickets Erupt here in the 8, but I'm also seeing, like, a Vigor Threshold with clear one, push, clear the other, make a big fat pocket, and we'd feel like superhumans. If we were to Vigor to pop those 2, and then we Domesticated Animals just to, like, naturally defend the 4, we would solve every single problem all at the same time. And so to set that up, all I have to do is push. I mean, there's going to be 2 Dahan movements, right? We either send stuff into the 7 or into the 4, and then we do the other one next turn. Okay, not a big deal. Let's add a presence and reclaim all. As for our element, if we play those same exact 3 cards again, then if we add the extra sun, we'll hit that sun in 8. And then we can gain a minor. Blood Draws Predators is another great sun animal card. It can help us just get that much more damage onto the island. Screen Disease is sweet because it's just a way of adding disease to the board, which of course has all those benefits. But frankly, between you, me, and everyone who's still watching like fucking 2 hours in, if that's you, all power to you. I'm amazed. We have this game locked up, right? All we have to do is just not have any back-breaking, devastating events, and we've got this thing covered. So Blood Draws is kind of like more damage than exists or is necessary. Call to Tend is another way of moving Dahan, which is cool. Reaching Grass does absolutely nothing for us, especially when you're sitting right next to Scream Disease. Like, this card's pretty useless. I don't think any of these cards that we draft are gonna see play. I'm gonna take Scream Disease for access to disease. And it can do little things like, oh, I screwed up and I didn't get that one little presence movement for this range 0 domesticated animals. It's okay, bro. We got you. Domesticated animals. Promises. Vigor. Okay, Seeking the Interior at Stage 3. That's the local diaspora. We had to push invaders all over the place, ruining our plans. Those jerks. Okay, so obviously we have to push out of this stacked land number 4. And they're going to go into 4 different lands, which is going to create 2 mining lands, which could make us lose. Thankfully, it's going to kick us down to... Ooh, actually, we might just lose. Oh. Wow. That's stressful. Okay, so to make things as less scary as possible, we're only going to kick these explorers around. Leave the town in place. Beast generates a fear. That's cool. And then we get to push 2 Dahan. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to push these Dahan over here. So if we don't get saved by this fear card, the Ravage happens. It's 5 damage Ravage. That's going to kill 2 Dahan, keep 1 alive. We can counterattack, kill a town. It will not be a mining land, and therefore we don't take an extra Ravage, and we don't lose to Blight. That local diaspora could have killed us, though. Push 3 from an inland land. Okay, yeah, AK8 does nothing to help us. A little bit of Blight. Gets really, really scary. But now we should be able to just win the game here. Because what we can do, right, we can use our Dahan movement. We're going to play just all the same cards again. Put Dahan here into the 4, put Dahan here into the 1. And then we can Vigor, kill everything in the 4, shoot 1 Dahan in both directions. So that way we get damage in the 3, damage in the 1, and that will be all that she wrote. If we're looking to do exactly that, we'd have 3 Dahan doing damage in the 1 for 6 damage, and over here we'd only have 2 Dahan doing damage for 4. Therefore, if we Mining Boom into the 1, we're going to have a bigger counterattack there, and we'll get more value. Or, actually, hold on, we could also Mining Boom into the 4, since we're going to get 4 damage here anyways. We'll kill, like, 2 towns. Killing off the Strife guy is kind of awkward. Because we're going to explore either mountains or sands. If we explore the sands and we Mining Boom there, this will be 4 pieces. We can kill 2 of them with these 2 Dahan. And it's not mining and it doesn't Ravage. If we get mountains and we Mining Boom there, we're looking at 9. And we can hit it for 6. Kicking it down to 3 power. Could be a single city, could be explore a town. Either way is fine. But yeah, so I think that's better. Because then we end with Dahan in that land, which makes the domesticated animals more smooth. Alright, we'll explore into a land with wilds to consume it, and then we can explore, no matter where we go, it will be a real explore. But that's fine because things are inactive. We'll explore here. Okay, let's push you 2. Fear, energy, reclaim the vigor. And yes, this should be the game-winning play. So we'll reclaim everything. We can just gain a card because why not? This decision does not matter. We're not going to play it. Carapace Land is pretty sweet. So It's 0 cost, defend 6. It's a very nice thing. First, like, I guess Domesticate Animals is a real defend card, but Carapace Land is another real defend card, finally. Disorienting Landscapes is actually very nice to help close out the game. In the early game, it's awkward because the whole, like, double Explorer thing, but in the late game, it's great. Being able to pick off one single Explorer, add the wilds, really shrinks the board. Pact of the Joint Hunt plays into what we're already doing, but I think in a way that's not helpful because Vigor does more damage. So, like, the situation where, like, Vigor doesn't get the job done, but Pact does is very weird to me. And then Twin Days is, yeah, it just doesn't do what we need. Carapace Land, but we're not going to play it. All right, Vigor. Promises, Domesticated Animals once again. And yeah, we just do the same exact thing. So we Vigor here. But before we Vigor, we have to Promises over to the 1. So now when we Vigor, we fully empty the 4, which solves that double action. We split these, because in every land that we push Tahan to, we get damage. So now we get to kill City Explorer. And over here, we get to do 6 damage, killing off City Town Explorer. And there we go. That is Terror level 3. We just killed off both the cities, and that is going to be a victory. If we had not hit that victory line yet, we would domesticate animals to defend the A3. So we would not take any blight in that Ravage. The sands would be completely empty. So we'd be looking at no Ravage actions threatening a blight. There would be no build actions. We'd only be looking at an Explore action, and basically everything can kill a town. In fact, with this Animal Innate, we can do 2 damage in this land and kill this town, so we'd be winning in the slow phase anyways. Whew, what a doozy, what a game, oh my gosh. We made it, we really did it. I hope that taking this extra time and explaining everything to a greater degree of detail is something that you guys find valuable. It was quite the experience to go through. Perhaps by going slower and more methodical, it kind of helps counterbalance the whole like drafting OP majors type of thing. You know, that does feel kind of bad when we're trying to do like a super deep dive, and it would create an opportunity for discussing like how to really like squeeze juice from a stone or blood from a stone, whatever the saying is. But we got presented some very strong cards, and we were able to do it well. We did not get any defend cards, so a way that I like to play this is oftentimes by just doing defend into Han movement. This was a much more proactive one. We were not offered any real defend cards until very late in the game. And so, yeah, that just makes us play a little bit differently. But there's a lot of ways to beat HME. It's a very dynamic adversary, and I think it's a very fun one. Hopefully this video makes this adversary more approachable, and you can take him on in your next game. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope y'all have a glorious day.